Good evening. My name's Tom Rail. I'm chairman of the Public Works Committee, and we are meeting at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, February 9th, 2016. We're in the first floor conference room at City Hall. I'll call the meeting to order. Well, actually, go around the room to introduce everybody for the chief, a few in public.
Steve Colt, Alderman, 5th District.
Greg Epp, Alderman.
Terry Dolan, Alderman.
Todd Perky, Alderman.
Joe Terry, Director of Public Works.
Joe Bach from Wisconsin Rapid City Times.
Bill Fetterly. Joe Eichstead, City Engineer.
Scott Kellogg, Alderman.
Benny Tall, Alderman. Doug Shane, Aspires Riverview Hospital.
Thank you. Let's see. If it's all right with everybody, could we jump to item 4 to start with, or not? Or do you have to?
Just fine.
Greg's staying for that one. So, item 4, consider a driveway width variance request from First Congregational Church at 311 2nd Street South. Joe?
Yes, so I believe it's Clark Schneider went in and made the referral. There is a map provided in the documentation that kind of shows the area, probably in black and white, but right now they have, it's on Birch Street. And so they have a very narrow parking lot and 2 driveway access points with a full curb head kind of separating the two. And so their request is basically to remove that full curb head section, and that way people can utilize the other couple spaces they have, and people aren't jumping the curb and doing that sort of thing.
They want to take out the whole middle section there? That's what
Yep.
you're saying? Okay. And I don't have a problem with it, just how wide does that make that driveway, and what is our ordinance
I don't-
for width, do you know offhand? Or
I believe it's,
I drove by again today, I've been by it 100 times in my lifetime, I think, but
It's certainly over what the
Yeah,
ordinance specifies. It's 36 or 40 feet,
Yeah.
one of those two for a driveway width allowed. That one would be probably around 60 feet. I don't have the exact measurement, but
would that be,
oh, okay.
at their expense?
yeah, that was, they were planning on hoping to do that. Contractor.
Yeah, when he actually stopped me one day and talked, it's for safety too of backing out onto that street, said, because a lot of people back out and it's backing straight out and they would put more angle
It's
parking
annoying.
there. Oh, so,
And it's a low volume roadway, there isn't much traffic to contend with.
In that area, I think, the narrow streets and whatever, and the narrow not the driveway, parking spaces. In this case, I think it behooves us, I think, to allow the variance to go through. Because of the situation, everyone's different, so.
Want a recommendation?
Yep.
Okay.
If you want to.
Yeah, I'll make a recommendation to widen the driveway for First Congregational Church at 311 2nd Street.
I second that. Any discussion? Any? Hearing none, committee will vote. All those in favor respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thanks.
Gentlemen, could I bring something up real quick? Number 8 on your list, I believe, parking in alleyways. Could we talk about that?
How do you go about getting variances?
Okay, just, would that be all right with the committee? I know you're here with. It's all right with the committee, we'll go to 8. And that's to consider amending chapter 27, and that's parking to include no parking on alleys. note here, that there have been some alley-related parking problems, and while vehicles are not allowed to park in a lane of travel, the current language does allow for some confusion and debate. The proposed language is attached. Joel, so you guys want to lead us into this?
Sure. Yeah, so there's been some recent alley-related parking issues. Talking with the police, it also sounds like there's been some in the past before. Kind of digging through the ordinance to see what sort of language there is or isn't in there. It's not in black and white that parking is not allowed on alleys. However, with the premise that the alleys are usually only 10 to 15 feet wide, there isn't room for parking on the alleys. And I think the general presumption, at least from the police standpoint, was that they were ticketing parked vehicles, which in some cases in the past have gone to municipal court and were denied because it wasn't very clear that they were that it was illegal to do that. But under the premise that the alleys are too narrow and that somebody that would park in the alleyway would be obstructing the usage of it for the neighbors, that's more of the basis of proposing some language to make it clear.
And that's it up on the board. That's
Right,
what we're proposing.
Yep. So it's basically just adding all alleys to the parking regulation.
Any questions for anybody?
So I know in the past that, there's been some issues with the alleys, especially over here downtown, and stuff like that. And I think these people want to be recognized as far as the residential alleys. Some of the alleys that are unimproved, they're not paved, they're not gravel, they're just grass. So I think
maintained during the winter.
that's, I think,
Yeah.
if you want
Yeah.
to recognize them.
Sir,
My name is Cheryl Skusvich. I own the property at 250 17th Avenue South.
what avenue?
250 17th Avenue South, right across from the school. I have been the only one to snow blow it, mow the lawn. Everybody on each side of me doesn't. I mean, the grass has grown over everywhere else, but because I have gardens and I scrap and I haul dirt to the gardens and whatnot. In 2011, Officer Borchardt, got that record here, gave me a ticket Memorial Weekend, and it was dismissed because they said there was only 5 legal parking alleyways that you could not park in. So they said, you're fine to do that. Now, 5 years later, in a 25-hour span, at 1:40 a.m. And the following mid-morning, 3:36 a.m. when I was out of town,
2 tickets within
and then they
25
towed
hours.
my vehicle for $150 fee to Neiman's. I didn't even know I had the one or read it because I wasn't home. I went out the next day and there was another one stuck in my door. And by the time I walked out at noon or what have you, they had already towed it. And I'm like, what? Because 5 years prior had been dismissed, and it was 6 years or 7 years prior to that there was never a problem. So I am.
All of a sudden, there's an issue about parking.
Yeah, and I went to the municipal garage, and he said that, very briefly, the alleyway south of Alton Street, directly west of 17th Avenue South, is a public alley that is unimproved and is not maintained by the Wisconsin Rapids Street Department.
Paul Ballarat signed that.
Yeah, and so now, of course, we kept Young Rivers for our towing bill, but he deferred the tickets for 6 months. Will send me to jail if I can't park there, but there is a problem with the school. I have more than one vehicle, and you don't have the option of going from one side of the road to the other. Nobody does that. When I called, it was Halloween weekend, I called down to the dispatcher and I said, what's the new ordinance? Now it's October, is it 2 a.m, midnight? You know, you can't keep up with this stuff because it seems to change constantly and nobody knows. So I said all of the years since 2003 I've been here, nobody drives over and parks on the side of the school, and Muriel was the dispatcher's name. She argued with me, I was very polite, and she said, well, the cops are just doing you a favor then by not ticketing you. And I said, well, I don't want them to do me a favor, I want to do the right thing. So, you know, there's not many options. People will park to pick up their kids and block the alleyway on both sides. So I can't, you know, my schedule is a lot of times revolved around the school, so I am, you know, I would just like to know from 1, 5, 6 years to the next, why it's okay one time and not the next, and why they came in the middle of the night, 1:48 a.m. and 3:36 a.m., 25 hours apart, and towed me.
And another thing,
I
it
don't
should be
understand.
legal to park in the alley where she lives. I mean, I don't see why that
Well,
would be a problem, especially in the winter time. It's not plowed. You know, I've plowed it enough so, you know, you can get a vehicle in there. And we're
There is
talking,
no right of way. The tickets all said
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. different things.
No one else is using
Is
the
that
alley.
used at all?
Nobody uses it.
No one
And
uses it.
There's somebody that lets their dog walk through and poop in the alleyway. Hate
No
from his-
garage access or anything?
No. There's a fence.
No.
There's
I'd like to
fence
see
here.
Which one it is.
What is the address?
It's 250 17. I'm directly across from East School, and I think we're the first
250?
gym. Are you?
17th
might-
Avenue South.
yeah. And I-
Actually, I'm not, Lee is here.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think you called me this morning.
I spoke with you?
Right, but Lee is actually your alderman.
Okay.
You go south of Chase, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, I've got utility vehicles, scrapping ones, when I do farmer's market in the summer, and, you know, there's more probably issues with
The
me needing
attorney-
to make it look a
city
little bit
attorney
better there.
requested we possibly should get a variance, and that would have to go probably through the committee here.
And
And we'd have to suggest that sometime, or
we don't know what
Depends.
this is.
what you guys decide here, you know?
I'd like to see what it looks like. And if it's not used, do
Yeah,
we want it? I mean,
well, the
could we off, whatever, we'll get into that.
the other
We
thing
see
is,
it.
we as landowners have to maintain our property and mow. Why does the city, and it's been at least 12 years,
Not have to maintain their
not have
city
to
property.
maintain their city property if I'm not allowed to use my property? In many other places, they've just grandfathered, where each property owner owns half the alleyway. I've had utility people come in throughout the years, and I say, am I in your way at all? And they're like, no, you're fine.
That's true, I mean, Charter came in one time, and,
You
you
can
know,
get around me.
the vehicle was
anywhere,
there,
but-
no problem.
South?
So,
South.
Yeah, 17th Avenue South.
yeah. And now they get to see the junk I have to have out by next week, the next ordinance court.
I don't have to drive over.
So where's the alley?
Where the cars are parked.
The cars are parked.
Okay.
So I guess, from at least the intention of staff, this could be rewritten to improved alleys. The general concept is that if there's an alley now, you know, this particular situation, if somebody wants to use,
Well, I'm not gonna carry dirt from
you know, a
the
house to the north or the south, they may be impeded by, you know, the vehicles that are here. I think the general intention, though, is that for paved alleys, you know, if somebody parks alongside, another vehicle can't get through, if there's a delivery or something, it can't get through.
Right, paved alleys.
Right.
I totally
You know,
understand
but
that.
here's a situation too, that if you did have, and I have not spoken with the fire department, but if you had a situation where you needed to get apparatus through, you know, you do have a designated public right-of-way that is now inaccessible. I certainly can't speak on behalf of the police or fire departments, but, you know, just because of the width of the right-of-way, if there needed to be access through there, the city vehicles would need to go onto private property in order to do that.
they do anywhere else. I mean, in a residential area, it just happens that there used to be an alleyway there. Now people have gotten garage built,
Yeah, you should
they've
see.
got gardens right on the alleyway, to both blocks to the north and south or east and west of me.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's, so
I'm just gonna throw something out, maybe I shouldn't right now, but, if this is, I mean, I think we should maybe
It is an
look
alley.
look at it maybe physically and see what, and check with the police and fire department. I don't know if you people there would be interested, but if it's a, that we're not using it for anything.
No.
Right.
or maintaining it.
Well,
Joe,
there's an issue with that, though.
I've actually plowed it myself with a snowblower.
Well, I've done it for 12
But
years.
She's been doing it for 12 years.
No, actually, keep talking.
well, there's, if we're not using it, we're not plowing it, trucks aren't going down to, service anything. Would the property owners be interested in acquiring that property if we don't need it? But it would go on your tax rolls. I don't know what that would add to it.
Whatever that- yeah,
Or
the
how it
Hank-
would be, if it, I don't know how it'd be conveyed to you if, through, whatever. Joey?
So that,
It would be like
for this
60.
particular situation, it could possibly be a vacation of the alley, which I think there's a petition that you would have to go around to the neighbors and.
It's called a vacation.
That was a
Yep.
word.
And so it would split back equally to the neighboring properties.
In this
It'd probably
case,
be for the full length of the alley.
Don't judge it by this picture.
No.
because there's only one
in
vehicle
this case, if that were to happen, of course, then there'd be no access to the back of these properties by anybody, because
And with what I'm saying, I guess, is that technically you mentioned earlier, the police fire department is there, maybe that we'd have to go through them to see if, I guess what we're talking about makes sense.
and I would hope that,
Most people snow blow into the alleyway, and then I gotta come through and the plows go by and plug it back up. We did half of it just the other day.
I know some of the concerns that, and I talked to you a little bit about this too, and with some properties actually in your area with the clutter of the yards and stuff like that, and there were, in that alley or maybe the alley to the south, there was actually a vehicle there that was left for months on end, a Ford Explorer. Also, to the west, a couple blocks and north off from Alton, there was an alley that I don't think went all the way through, okay? But it was still a city alley where residents left multiple vehicles there, vehicles without motors. They even left their campers put up on camper jacks and run a power cord to it, right in the city's alley. It's the city's alley. So I know with the ordinance control officer, that was quite an issue with him as far as vacating properties. I don't want to get involved with that conversation myself, but I mean that would be something that I guess we'd look to engineering for direction on that, whether the need for the city ownership of that. I know on 17th Avenue, there were some properties that were city properties and the city wanted to give it to the adjacent landowners and they didn't want it because they didn't want to pay the taxes on it and they had enough property. So now if you vacate an alley, I mean, you gotta vacate the whole thing. You can't
Right.
vacate just your section.
Joel?
You couldn't just rent for a variance then?
so you can see, this is just an example, and there aren't a whole lot of alleys in the city, but, you can see, an example where I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm hoping that we're not looking at this one particular example to set policy, right? This is, what we're trying to look at is a need in general, and, we're looking at a photograph here, so You know, I'm not,
Absolutely.
Not
Now
right.
look at this for an example.
I'm just trying to point out, though, you can see the width of the alley, and you can see what happens when there's a vehicle either in the alley, or if it's parked, you know, maybe there's a garage real close, and the vehicle's parked parallel with the alley and partly in the alley. The width itself prevents access from others, and that's why it is fairly typical that municipalities not allow any parking on alley right-of-ways for that reason. And
Then the city should have to maintain it if they expect people. I'm the only one that's taking care of it. Nobody else has a garage. In fact, the neighbor to the Essex and parks a boat next to their boat. I mean, you gotta really squeeze kind of through there to just get in one way or out the other. And I have garden at another neighbor's.
If you take
So I haul dirt from, you know.
If you take it the opposite direction.
I guess to go back to what staff has brought forward, we could, I think, probably act in some way, or change wording or whatever has to be done. But I think we could act on that, but look at that, you know, the case over here as a separate, how we could address that. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
you know, and again, just with vehicles parked there, because it is public property, if somebody did wish to access the alley, the public alley north of where those vehicles are parked, they can't do it. They're impeded from doing so. You know, we wouldn't allow someone to park on a public sidewalk. That
But I'm
would impede-
even
we
gonna
wouldn't allow
walk through
someone
there
to
when the
park in
grass
a-
is up over their head and the
in a-
snow's.
in you know, a lane of traffic otherwise also. So it's, you know, it's just a matter of being able to, for the, you know, for the city to do as it deems necessary to access that area.
Can you zoom back to the wording on the?
Yes.
Who's gonna use the alley is what I'm saying. If I didn't maintain it, if I did, because I'm the only one that uses it, other than maybe a dog walker once in a while, because I've got it cleaned up. I mean, that's why I'm confused.
So here, instead of specifying individual alleys, we're proposing that the individual alleys be struck and be replaced with all alleys.
No parking, all alleys.
Just to be
So
clear.
that's big, you know,
That's the proposal you got.
That's the proposal, that's the recommendation of staff.
You're not gonna change the wording on that for this meeting, are you?
That's the
That's what-
proposal.
that's the
you got.
proposal, if the committee's gonna, or
If you wanna do something to their point, you gotta do something different, I mean,
well, that, I guess that's what I was trying to
you
get
gotta
at,
follow
all
the
that.
agenda a little
If
bit.
we, well, if we did what was, I gotta get to it.
If that's the case, then why doesn't the city have to maintain
I
the
mean, some
property?
of us
Well,
did,
see, consider amending chapter 27 on parking to include no parking on alleys, which I think that says. And I guess what I was getting at before is if the committee wanted to do this, if this went through and then went through council, that an individual item, if, I think Joe, you made a said about them going around or somebody going around with a petition like or whatever to vacate it, that we could do something then. This would do it. Now it won't satisfy you at this point, but the proposal does what I think is on our agenda.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea, it's all inclusive. And then in the future, deal case by case. I'm sure there's unique cases in all of our districts somewhere, somehow. I had one where there was a tree growing into the alley, so they had to remove the tree. I mean, everybody's got a unique case. So if this is all inclusive, then it's a blanket, and then deal with each case
Individual.
yeah, to Joe's
individually.
point, then deal
Yeah.
with, they can,
Maybe a special sign, once it's decided by the council and stuff, but the idea, I kind of like the all-inclusive, I mean, because you talk about emergency, you talk about other cases, you need that access to the alley, but then look at each alley
Individual.
individually.
Well, it's short, there isn't much to read in it, so it's pretty self-explanatory.
And I-
What's left? Go ahead.
One thing.
To her,
I'm not
to
gonna
her
read, sorry.
point,
That's all right.
to her point too, the landowners now are maintaining the alley, whether it's snow removal or grass cutting. I mean, our city crews do not go cut the grass
Right.
in these back alleys. So really, by default, the landowners, the adjacent landowners are the ones that are actually maintaining it,
Mhm.
you know?
Actually, nobody maintains it except me, the whole strip from the block, from one end to the other. And if somebody parks on the easement that used to be there, then, you
I'd
know,
like to
then people are,
We're not maintaining
if it's-
any of it.
if you're not allowed to park or use the alley or, you know, unload your dirt or what have you, then people shouldn't be able to block the alley from entering it or exiting it like people do all the time during school. You know, when they're picking up and dropping off their kids, there's limited parking to begin with when you're right off 17th Avenue. You know,
I'd like to say one thing. I understand what you mean about emergency
absolutely.
right now, okay?
Nobody would be able
There's
to
no
get,
vehicle that can get through there in emergency because of how high the snow
yeah,
is.
they can't put a plow through there, a
See what I
big,
mean? So
city
it kind
plow.
of like,
Joe,
If I could just suggest, I mean, basically at this point, I mean, there is what's brought forth with the agenda item, there'd be two additional avenues that you could go down, and that would be one, the vacations, vacating the city would
get a petition.
yeah, vacate the alley. And the other one would be that you make a referral to the Public Works Committee that the alley be improved. I guess those would be the two options that are out there.
yeah, one way or the other, yeah.
yeah, because we get tickets if we don't mow our lawn as landowners. Why does the city have to restrict usage of it, but they don't maintain it? That's the double standard there. I'm not getting it.
But, yeah,
Okay.
that's another
Steve?
topic, I guess, but.
You know, I mean, really,
The only concern I see with the vacation of the alley, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, my interpretation is, if you vacate that alley and you give it to the adjacent property owners, that's no longer classified as an alley, you're classifying it as lawn. So now you're gonna take and you're gonna put them in a different situation where the ordinance control officer is gonna go by and take a look at it and say, hey, you're parking on your lawn, now instead of a parking ticket, now you're gonna be giving them a $313 municipal citation for parking on lawn.
And they wouldn't be able to access it anyway.
No, you're splitting it, yeah,
Yeah.
you're not gonna.
They, you know, because there's no alley anymore, those are lot lines, so there's no access to the back unless they'd come from their own
And
front property.
with and on that too, you know, if you vacate the alley, then you're taking that away, that access away from everybody.
Right.
Unless there was some sort of gentleman's agreement with all the neighbors to allow access through that, so what I think, in my opinion, what I think it comes down to is, okay, you know, we can consider the amendments to the ordinance, but to their point of getting a ticket, you know, the gal said that she got a ticket 5 years ago and it was dismissed by the court. Now she's getting tickets again. I think signage, you know, if you don't want people parking on that alley,
sign up, no parking.
sign it, no parking. If it is approved for parking, you know, then just, no, I don't know, I guess, if there's no sign there, tell nobody to park on it. People may not know the contrary. We have no parking signs up for numerous other places in the city, and
I think in general, you know, with an ordinance, it would be of interest, especially to those like yourselves that may have otherwise on occasion parked there, but, you know, you can't park over a sidewalk either, and we don't have any no parking. You know, you can't park within so many feet of an intersection. In some cases, it may or may not be painted. You know, there are some parts of our municipal code that you know,
25 mile an hour speed.
right, 25 mile an hour speed limits in a residential street. It's not signed 25. It's just, you know, that's part of the traffic rules that you know, that in places like alleys, most people wouldn't park there anyway because you know that you can't get through. And if, you know, here's a a situation that's a bit unique, but, and I don't know that it would be necessary to sign all the alleys, no parking. Just a matter of, it has been an issue before, there have been complaints before. These folks that have the misfortune of receiving a citation before, might be a different officer. As people look at the code, it seems reasonable that you can't park in a travel lane. And that's why we were tasked to modify or propose modifying the ordinance so that it was a little more consistent and easier to understand, both from an enforcement standpoint as well as for the public, so that they can interpret it.
Well, I would, for what the agenda has on there, I would move that we accept the proposed change to the ordinance for alleys for no parking.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Any
More
further?
for them, they can refer to your committee then for their issue.
Yep.
Okay, so our next step would be what, sir?
Joe, I think you had the best explanation
A
there.
vacation or a
Yeah.
petition or?
Yeah, so you could, those would be two options. I don't know if the vacation really would, that would
Suit your- what's the other
situation. The other option would make a referral to the Public Works Committee to improve the alley.
A variance.
No,
No,
So that it'd be paved.
improve it, yeah, so it'd actually be an alley and then the no parking. We just, if we pass.
Well, I think,
Maintenance.
I don't
So
know
either
this for
or.
a fact, but
Yeah.
Terry Wolf, my neighbor just passed away, Del King, to the right of me, and the other side's a rental property. So I had to cut trees down on their property because they abandoned their property for 5 years and their trees growing over. It's give and take, whatever. I mowed my neighbor's lawn for years just because he was disabled. Terry Wolf now is selling that property, and I think that's who probably complained, and they were on it. I don't know, so,
So basically, either way, there's still gonna be no parking there. Whether you get a vacation to improve it, because it's gonna get paved, you still can't park back there, it's without signs.
Right.
So it's a no-win situation for,
Well, you still would have access though. You'd still be able to access, if you were going to be unloading materials or whatever, you'd still at least have access to your backyard through the alley.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, but, I don't want to make this sound bad, but I got 4 vehicles. I got kids living at home, and they're all
Exactly.
parked in
There's
the
no
drive.
room.
They're all parked in the driveway. That's what I gotta do. I gotta move cars sometimes. I live by Lincoln High School. I can't park on the road, but I gotta live with that. That's where I live.
right.
I do it.
the thing that's strange about
I
it
move
all
a car on the
is
road, I get a ticket.
is
But I got it.
it wasn't maintained, there's snow back there. You couldn't get through the alley anyway.
Yeah, I'm not arguing about that,
See what
but
I'm
that's
saying?
something we gotta
I
address.
think,
So if you guys vacate the alley?
No.
You're not
We
gonna
got-
vacate the alley?
no,
Okay, I still don't know.
I've got it
the
figured out.
the motion is to approve what's up on the board,
For all,
and that's that there's no parking in any alley.
Can't do Wisconsin.
And that's what the motion is on the floor. And I think, committee to move this along,
there was a motion seconded.
we have a motion and second to go along with the proposed change to the ordinance. So I think I'd call for a vote. Committee, all those in favor, respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Guys have it.
Thank you for your time.
Good night.
Well, let's see. Should we go through the reports or aspirers? As long as we're jumping around.
Well, since we,
Oh, yeah, why don't we-
let's go with
He's
the-
been-
we've gone
You're
through.
very patient, so.
Look, you got TV.
Come on, yeah. Okay, we'll go to item number 5, and that's review request from Aspirus Riverview Hospital to replace lighting fixtures on Dewey Street. And you've got the floor, I guess. Tell us what you want.
We're looking at replacing, there's 8 light fixtures that were part of a streetscape project that was done a number of years ago. Riverview decided to have the same type of lighting that was in the parking lots on the street. So I believe that was before my time. They purchased the poles and the fixtures and put them on the street, on Dewey Street, from 3rd to Hill Street, where those 8 fixtures are. And we just recently completed a relamping of the parking lots where we did about 83 fixtures, and we put these solid state or LED fixtures. Basically, it was like less than half the wattage, and we've gotten so many positive responses that now with the old HID that we have in the street, people are wondering when we're going to continue, and that's why we brought it to this committee to determine whether we could go with the same type of fixture on our poles.
That's in my district, and it
And
doesn't.
you've worked with Water and Light through them,
Right.
and
we've talked about the color rendering. You know, that's something, you know, we're going to check with, see if there were DOT standards. I think at this point, the technology is relatively new. It's really kind of vague. But what we were proposing is that it would be the same color, basically, as we have in the parking lot, so it looks consistent. That was our goal to begin with, that it was consistent with the lighting in the parking lots, primarily for safety reasons. It is considerably different now than it was before. One concern was, you know, how much light drift there would be. They seem to cut off and not escape. And since we're on both sides of the street, I don't think this would be any different than what we have in the parking lots.
and the payment, how would it be funded?
We would
You would fund it,
we would purchase those.
the whole
Those,
thing.
right, we maintain those poles and
And you-
fixtures. It would continue to do what we have been.
Would the poles be similar to the ones in the parking lot?
They would not be changed. They're a square pole, so they're more compatible with the type of heads that we put on than, I know we talked about a different type of fixture that's primarily a street light. Those wouldn't really adapt to these type of poles. These are more like, I guess, parking lot poles, if you will. They're a square pole.
Yeah, it's only that one block, or
Right.
2 blocks, I guess.
Joe, you have anything to add in here?
We worked with
I know you
Doug
recommended
and
approval.
Todd Weiler on the request and reviewed everything and recommend going with it or approving that there, from a staff level review, there weren't any issues with it, so.
And no cost to us. But-
Must be a problem.
It's when we hear that, it's always a good, a good
That's a
point,
win-win.
so. There's no further comments or questions, committee, recommendation?
I'll make a recommendation to they have a Spires River View Hospital to replace lighting fixtures on Dewey Street, commensurate with the parking lot lighting and at their expense.
I'll second that. Any other questions? Hearing none, committee will vote. All those in favor of the motion respond by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Ayes have it.
Thank
Thank
very
you for-
much. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for being patient and waiting to get to you. Thank you. Yeah, take care. Back up, we might as well go back to item 2, I guess, here. That's the review the DPW report.
Sure. In your packet, I've got the Public Works report. For the public that might be watching, we will be publishing this on the website. Unless the committee wishes me to review the whole thing, there's just a couple of highlights, I guess, I'd like to point out. Under engineering and traffic on page 1, there has been some continued work on the truck route letters, and those have been also provided in Spanish. And a GPS provider has responded that one of the companies will be making changes to their mapping already in February. So we continue to move forward on that.
Great, good.
Over at the city garage, the offices have been reorganized to make it slightly more welcoming and professional to the general public that might stop over. The secretary's office has been relocated front and center so that if someone comes in the door, there's someone there to greet them. And then the street superintendent and street supervisor's office have been, the street superintendent's office is where it was, and the street supervisor's office is where the secretary's office was. So, so those folks are still right up front, but it's I think a much more professional, and it needed some work anyway. It's a very attractive job and done by the city street department. Also, the meeting room area has been retiled and really looks nice. If you have an opportunity and you want to stop over sometime, take a look. It turned out very well.
That's what I was gonna say. I haven't been in there for a long time myself.
At some point, if it,
I'm gonna try to get in there. In fact, years ago, this committee did travel around and look at different things.
yeah, I think if it's of interest,
And that may be something for the committee to,
yeah, if it's of interest to the committee, I think we could talk about doing a field trip.
Yeah.
To view our assets, our equipment, so that you get a feel for it, and potentially, as we're putting together our capital plans, as a group, taking a look at some of the future street projects so that you can see them firsthand and get a feel for them.
yeah, that may be something, you know, if we, to look at all of that is just have even a one item.
Yeah.
Meeting.
Right.
You know, it'd have to be noticed because the committee's meeting, so.
Right.
But, yeah, if the committees would be interested, you know, let me know or Joe and Joe.
We did have a successful, for those that came downtown for the snow sculpture event, our street department assisted in getting those boxes ready to go, and we had a number of really beautiful snow sculptures, so that was a big success. And of course, we had 4 plowing and salting events. This last storm wasn't, certainly wasn't intense as what was forecasted, but the time of day made it quite an expensive one to take care of. So that's of note. Another, not specifically public works related, but it is a new staff member that's under my supervision, is the airport administrator. For those that aren't familiar, the airport commission has elected to utilize an airport administrator in its contract with the city of Wisconsin Rapids to provide that service. And so we have hired an airport administrator. That position answers to the airport commission, but the individual reports to me. So he's been working here for several weeks and it's been going very well. We also have met, I've met with staff, both engineering, wastewater, and street department to discuss working conditions, things like that. Those meetings have been very, very beneficial and opening a good line of communication. The whole report will be published on the website, so that the public will have an opportunity to view it.
I have a comment. You mentioned about the plowing, and I think they've done a great job in the last snowfall. But I do have a concern that there was some still residual snow in some spots. Where I live, there's some. And then with this deep frost, that just freezes and it's like potholes as you go through. So it seems to me that this plowing initially was great, but if there's some residual plowing, and it might be in pockets. I noticed there was a street north of downtown. I drove over there, and it wasn't plowed. It was soft snow. I mean, it was just slushy. The sand melted it and so forth. But then if a truck could go around, or if we know of those spots, maybe the police department could inform you.
Sure.
And just quickly go around and scrape those once again before a deep frost would come, I think it would be advisable. And it wouldn't cost us as much if we know where those pockets are and stuff like that.
So to discuss that situation in particular, I did have a few phone calls to that effect. During the plowing procedure, of course, it was still snowing.
Yeah.
And, our policy requires streets to be cleared once we get 4 inches of snow. There is some discretion there for, between myself and the street superintendent, that if we believe that there could be more expense, that we may remove snow that's less than 4 inches. And in many cases, we would do just as you suggested, is that, we'd go back and clear some of those.
Yeah.
We'll be cognizant of and take a look at areas where we are starting to get some ice potholes, and I'll make sure that we get some equipment out to scratch those areas so that it's safe for travel. I just want to make sure though that there's an understanding through our existing policy that we expect safe driving conditions. Our main streets and arterials are going to be relatively clear of snow, but that's not necessarily the expectation for our residential streets. We try to maintain them in a safe winter condition. Sometimes that does result in some ice pack, but we'll take a look around, and as we get some of those areas that are potholing, we'll do some scratching.
Thank you. Item 3, evaluate intersection options on East Grand Avenue at Lincoln Street.
Don't have anything specific in your packet on that, but we can pull the map up and
I'm glad you're using it. This is great.
good. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Because, you try to visualize all these things.
Wish it was more up to date. I had to check my house.
Yeah. Remove that clutter.
That's what we should, well, actually, I did call on one of them.
That's how you
Saw
can
the
tell.
clutter from the map, I said, hey.
Big Brother's.
Joe, do you want to cover this one?
Sure. So we were hoping to have a final report, intersection evaluation from the consultant for this meeting, but they were currently waiting on some revised traffic forecasts from Central DOT office. But some preliminary information anyway is that right now there's 3 different options that are on the table. Of course, everybody knows that the roundabout is one of those options. The other 2 would be keeping what we have with the traffic signals, and the third one possibly is a 4-way stop. And with that said, the 4-way stop, or the all-way stop, I should say, does appear with the preliminary numbers to still operate within their design year, which goes out to almost 2040. It's a design value that they have to run through and check to make sure it's going to function for a period of time for the next 20 years. The traffic signal, kind of just pros and cons. There's an expense with the traffic signals. It'd be more expensive than the all-way stop. That would also function under the preliminary traffic volumes. And then the roundabout, the expense would be the upfront cost of that one with the real estate needed to, in order to put that in there. So they all have pros and cons, and they'll all be kind of laid out in that report once the forecasted volumes come back, and we'll certainly share that with the committee as soon as we get it. So,
Thank you. Getting back to years ago when the thing was laid out, I forget how many, 4 or 5 roundabouts were on that map, and it was interesting to look at. It's hard to believe, but they're coming, and yeah, where they are, they work great, I think, anyway. So I'm not pushing for that. There's 3 options there, yeah.
We've also talked about if at some of these intersections, we'll be discussing that if it is an all-way stop, it may be an interest of the city to install a conduit to accept traffic signals. If we do have significant change in the downtown and, when traffic volumes change,
If you have to.
concrete streets, we're maintaining them pretty well, and we're getting 50, 60 years out of them. So It'd be a shame to have a street and in
Have
20
to tear
years
it
we
up.
have more traffic and have to tear it up
Tear
to
it
install. So, so those are all things that we're
No,
discussing.
That makes sense, so.
With the Grand Avenue, that intersection and the footprint, will that be enlarged in width at all? Or just gonna maintain the current width?
There are some cross sections that have been displayed. We would only have one travel lane in either direction, and then there would be bicycle accommodations as well. And there are a few options there's currently, of course, some parallel parking in some of the areas east of Lincoln. There are a few options to maintain, make some small alterations or enhance some of those parking options as well. So we'll be evaluating those and bringing those to committee for review when it's appropriate.
Okay, keep us informed as you go along. Item 4, consider check, oops, that one we did. I didn't
Number
cross that off my
6.
list, that's where we started. Item 6, review draft policy on sanitary lateral replacements within the right of way. Joel?
So we've got a draft document put together. It follows a similar format to our other policies and procedure documents that we have. It goes through the background of some of the other ordinances and why this policy is put forth, I guess. And basically would help staff in administering the protocols based upon different scenarios that would occur during an installation. If it's either all public installation or private and public or all private, things can get complicated in a hurry. And who's paying for what and who's responsible for what when you've got different entities involved. So it's an attempt to try to lay out guidelines as far as who's responsible and how we would permit it. On the second page, there's the scenarios. It's really the kind of meat and potatoes of the policy that they kind of go through and lay out. So, for example, scenario 1, that based upon an issue with lateral, that the other infrastructure that's around or the depth of it or complication of the proposed repair would create undue risk and safety, that there'd be a list of items to follow in that scenario. Scenario 2 would be that everything looks fine, private contractor could be permitted and they could successfully complete the work, do it safely. Of course, we have excavation permits and everything in place today to permit a private contractor to work in the right of way. Kind of the thing that we don't have is under scenarios where that private work now impacts, say, the city's mainline sewer and how we deal with that. And it addresses the fact that the lateral is a private piece of infrastructure that's allowed to be in the right of way. And it gives guidance, something to be consistent with for staff to follow. The last scenario 3, that would be a situation if the city was performing some other sort of maintenance work or doing maintenance, televising or looking at sewers and notices something that is damaged to a degree that causes excessive infiltration of groundwater into the sanitary sewer system or is allowing a lot of sand into the pipe or something of that nature. And in that scenario, we would first notify them and make them aware of the situation that they need to maintain and fix their.
Well, when I read through this, I liked the three scenarios. I mean, it laid it out there. I thought anyway. This is a draft. Has staff thought of any changes to make in this, or?
We propose to hold it over,
Okay.
that, for you and potentially the community that's interested to review it over the next month period, and then bring it back for finalization then as a policy, and to formally approve it then next month as a policy if it's deemed appropriate.
I have a couple of questions. In the second scenario, just that word WYE, I didn't know what that meant. I looked it up, and it said it was a slang for her brother or something. What does that?
So a Y is a branch off of a sanitary main.
Oh,
It's a term specific for sanitary sewer laterals, where the service lateral attaches to the main.
and then the third scenario, you said there might be a fine. How do you determine that fine? I mean, is it a formula that you would determine it, or based on
Ordinance.
ordinance? And they
Based
would
on
have
our
that right
ordinance.
in there. Okay.
Anybody have any other questions? Otherwise, staff will continue to look into it and let the public look at it.
There was another one.
Oh, we got another question? Okay.
Just in that scenario too, ROW, R-O-W.
Oh, right away.
Right away.
Okay. Maybe you could, for people that may not know what it is.
Sure.
And then INI, what's that?
That's infiltration and inflow.
Okay.
Those are things that we could clarify.
Just for somebody reading it, yeah, you'd think it's a company or something like that or whatever. So.
What we could do is we'll make those edits, and then we'll also publish this on our city website. So if the public wants to take a look at it and offer comment, they can contact our office then and do so.
Okay, thank you, guys. Item 7. Review assessment ordinance as it pertains to the Second Avenue South project from the expressway to Gaynor Avenue.
So just, it's a, information presented today for this item is, just to be transparent in how we're interpreting and moving forward on special assessments and public hearings and that sort of thing as it pertains to the Second Avenue South project. It's rather unique. And I can briefly go through some of the reasons why, for information, why we probably wouldn't charge special assessments, and see what the committee thinks. But so it's a joint DOT/city project. The agreement that we have with the state has different funding levels based upon different aspects of the project. So like preliminary design, or design costs, the state is funding 75% of those costs. The real estate costs, they have a maximum value that they've said that they would pay for, otherwise the city's responsible for paying for the remainder. And then the state would be picking up 100% of the construction costs. A little background, typically with DOT projects are that 100% construction costs, there wouldn't be any special assessments charged to the property owners for the items that are covered, which DOT projects cover curb and gutter, street surfacing, storm sewer, those upper level things, sidewalk may not fall into that, but by state law, we're not allowed to make money on special assessments. So under that 100% paid by the state scenario, we wouldn't be able to charge or special assess for those particular items. In the alternative scenario, if we have underground utilities, sewer and water, along with 100% DOT paid project, they don't cover those utility items, the utilities pay for those, and those things would still be accessible. So I guess in a nutshell, this project doesn't have any utilities, and it's 100% paid for by the state, except for a portion of the design and the real estate, which we don't have accessible items for typically on our public hearing. Our public hearing rate sheet, we don't have any items specifically for those. So we're going off the premise that this probably isn't a project where we would have any accessible items for, but wanted to run it past the committee and see if there were any concerns with that.
I don't. I don't know if anybody else has something. Okay, I don't think we have to take any action on that. Reviewed it. Item 9, review 32nd Street and 25th Avenue speeds studies. And we have that in our packet.
This came later. So hopefully everybody's got a copy. So you'd start with 25th Avenue one.
I don't have that for our public here on this display, so I'll just put the agenda back up, but you should have them in your packets. Should we start with the 25th Avenue one? That's probably-
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
That's
Why don't
probably
we
the easier one.
Yeah.
So in November, we went out there and collected the speed data. The primary number that, a piece of information that we look at when we do a speed study is collecting up the speeds from a segment of the traffic. And we did that over a 24-hour period. And then of that group of vehicles, we take a look at all of their speeds. It's identified on this report and summarized there. But so of all the speeds that are all vehicles traveling at a particular speed, we look at what 85% of the vehicles are traveling at. So that's called the 85th percentile speed. And so state statute and all the guidance and engineering manuals, they say they figure the 85th percentile speed is what is a reasonable and prudent speed that the majority of the drivers feel comfortable driving at. The data that was produced from this speed study had an 85th percentile speed between 39 and 44 miles per hour. So they were taken at a couple different locations, one up by Alton Street and then one further south by Bowles. And so that's why there's two numbers there. But the posted speed limit on 25th Avenue is 25 miles per hour. It's a straight corridor. It's wide. There are bike lanes that are out there. It does have lane markings. There's no sidewalk. So kind of taking a look at all those factors. There's a lot of vacant land that's along the corridor as well. The recommendation, based upon the data that was collected and the information about the land use that's out there, is to increase the speed to 35 miles per hour for that corridor. Actually, we'd extend it probably just north of West Grand, so that entire corridor from is 35. Because it does shift to 35 miles per hour just north of,
By the tracks.
by the railroad tracks.
I made a trip today up back and forth. I tried out I was hoping there wasn't a cop sitting around, so. It is a nice wide road. It's just technically a 2-lane road.
Correct.
So,
Of course, one of the issues that we have out there is that because it is wide, there is a sufficient clear zone, so there's a significant buffer between the travel lane and the curb and yards. But it's important for the city to sign its streets, whether it's speed limit signs, stop signs, any type of traffic signs, in a manner that is reasonable for the situation. If we had certain characteristics, maybe a school or daycares or other situations that might deem a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit inappropriate, at that point we would have a discussion about that. But what we don't want is for the general public to disrespect or have no respect for our signing. And that's a real challenge in areas where we have a situation like this where the public literally isn't comfortable driving slow. And for good reason, because it's a wide street. And as a result, it's also challenging to get the police department to regularly enforce that area, because it's really a moot point. They can enforce it all the time, and it really isn't going to control the situation. If the speed limit is truly reasonable and prudent, and it's a responsible speed limit for the area, generally there's a lot more cooperation in enforcement action, and the general public also respects the signs a little better and tends to recognize that this is a reasonable speed limit in this particular area, and they tend to follow and obey the laws a little bit better.
And in this particular case, there were 95% of the vehicles in that 24-hour period that were non-compliant with the speed limit. They were going 30 miles per hour over.
Now, a situation in this area might potentially be revisited if it were completely developed with
Right.
residential homes. If the street were a little narrower, but it's
it's a wide street, I mean.
it's a classified street for us, so, it's not a local street, it's a collector.
If we do that, I just hope the public doesn't have a percentile that they start driving 50 miles, or 45 to 55 or something like that down there, because it's easy to do.
Well, we also have a
So
responsibility,
that
though, to recommend a speed that is reasonable.
Right,
And a combination of engineering and design and traffic enforcement helps make that happen.
And we can always go out and check into it, after a change and see, where things are at, if they're still consistent or.
Do you need separate motions or is it one motion, or how do we do it? To increase the, set one on the 25th Street and one on the 32nd.
well, I think just 30, we're just gonna do 25th on this, and we'll go to,
Okay.
take action on 25th, then we'll go to 32nd, so.
I don't know at this time that we're asking for action.
On this,
We're presenting the report for review
okay,
and to give yourself and the public time to,
okay,
Oh, you're not.
That's what I thought.
Just review.
that's what I thought at first, but then I read this over again and it said, well, recommending, and I thought you wanted to hold them over.
there is a recommendation, but we want to make sure that there's time.
Okay.
That people have time.
And for the public to see, because the ones along the routes there
May be concerned.
may have
Have some-
concerns.
Right.
Okay, let's go to 32nd Street. As
This one was a little more challenging, and it's, does not have a finalized recommendation or report yet, just due to the complexity of the corridor. There's basically three segments of differing characteristics that, either inside the city limits or outside the city limits, varying land uses along the corridor, varying speed limits that are currently out there today. So it is a little bit more complicated. It wasn't quite as cut and dry, but the 85th percentile speed that along the entire corridor, so that ran along 32nd Street from Chestnut Street up to Kingston Road, ranged from 40 to 49 miles per hour. Now if you look at individual segments, there were some that had, let's see, this was from the most southerly segment from Chestnut to Washington Street. There was a 99% non-compliance with the speed limit. So 99% of the vehicles were traveling outside of the posted speed. There are the only section of roadway right now that's posted 25 is between kind of the Saratoga Street area and Washington Street. And that portion is now it's in and out of the corporate limits of the city. Initially, the northerly section appears to be posted appropriately at 35, given the adjacent land uses there and the width of the street. The 85th percentile still resides above 35, but at this point, preliminarily, it appears that would be remain as such. It's the portion to the south of Washington that is still being reviewed, and that would probably be discussions with Grand Rapids yet that we haven't done, but because of the corporate limits and trying to find something consistent. And
I had questions on that spot, that corner years ago, 35 on the one side where the apartments that were and the kids crossing to go to the school was 35. On the other side where the mid-state is, and it's 25. Yep. And they wondered why it was that way. If it was going to be 25 and 35, why wasn't it reversed? 25, where the apartments were that, ours.
Right, and the geometry there also, there's exclusive rights. There's plenty of room to handle traffic that's leaving the tech school and entering the tech school. So
It's complex.
you're right. The complexity here is the multiple jurisdictions. That any change that's going to take place needs to be something that's agreed upon by all jurisdictions. And if there's a change that takes place, we have to all modify our ordinances accordingly. So we do need to make contact with the town and have a discussion and make sure that we're all on the same page before we make any recommendations moving forward.
I would also suggest too, is when you start to solidify your thoughts, to look at a hearing possibly for people that may want to attend living in this area or mid-state to give their input. So we don't have, I guess I'm gonna say pushback after and change their mind. So get everybody, all parties, the people that live there as well.
In south of Washington, there's another complex going in there.
Yeah.
Just south of Washington on the west side, so.
At least they can't say they haven't had a chance to have input.
Yeah.
We can do the same with the folks on 25th Avenue also.
Okay. All right. Item 10, Review of the 2016 proposed construction schedule.
Attached is your, as Public Works number 7, is the proposed schedule for our construction projects for this next season. Got a small project, well, you can see how the projects are aligned. I've met with engineering staff and our street department. The design work is being finalized for these projects now. Our goal in the future is to have design work done a year in advance. We've been discussing some construction techniques and also getting ready to notify property owners to have some pre-construction meetings. My effort would be to have pre-construction meetings on site, so the public, we can just walk the project and have a rain date if the weather's inclement. But to get the residents involved right away, so that they understand if there's changes in mail delivery or access, things like that, or if they have questions, we can just walk the project so that so those questions can be answered. We'll also,
That's a very good way to do it. I mentioned in an earlier item, something like this, to go out right to the site if possible. Because somebody might come down and say something to us, and us try to visualize what changed, even though we looked at it.
right.
If you're right there at the time, when somebody points something out or asks a question, you're right there, so you can take care of it.
There was also some confusion on some of the projects in the past between departments and staff as far as making efficient contact. If the public has questions, a lot of times they'll ask someone who's on the project, and that person will try to answer a question. And sometimes that's caused some issues if several people are asked and it's not answered quite the same. For our projects this coming year, and I anticipate moving into the future, each project will have a designated project engineer. We'll make sure that that's available. The project engineer and project inspector, one of our technicians, will be an inspector on site to assist in the street department, assist them with survey work and record keeping. It's been, with some of the staff reductions, it's been a little challenging, the street department, to really keep a strong track on exact amounts of time worked on the specific pieces of infrastructure, because oftentimes they're being done at the same time. And in order to track costs and efficiency, we're going to make some small changes that way, but we'll have our staff in the field will be able to have a business card. If the public has a question about the project that's not a routine question, but that requires a specific answer, they'll be able to provide a business card to the resident, and they can call the project engineer directly. I think in the end it'll be a very good working relationship between the public and the city staff, organized and kind of following a chain of command. I think it'll be pretty efficient. Staff seems to support that, and we're going to try it and evolve as we need to. But right now our project schedule looks pretty good, and we're getting ready to start ordering materials.
And the weather will be warmer when we get to where it starts.
By that time it sure will.
I have a
Question there, Scott?
not about this, but about parking. Because we talked about ordinance about the alley, but part of this ordinance, there's some crossing out of streets for no parking. Maybe I'm wrong in what I read.
I think some of those are older.
Pre-existing?
Those are pre-existing.
Yeah, those, I had
Oh.
attached the,
What? We haven't talked about these, have we?
Those are pre-existing.
Those are
There's no
What does
change
that
there. That means that was crossed off at some point in
In the past?
the past.
Yeah, so this MC municipal code number would refer to a previous motion.
That's a lot of reading.
Okay,
Those pages
I looked
there.
at those and said,
That's why we have a summary sheet.
Through that, yeah, concentrated.
All right. apologize.
No, that's fine.
okay, yeah. When I looked at it, I think I said to myself, wow. So, okay, is that it?
Yep.
Item 11, and that's discuss recycling truck replacement, including the possibility of changing to a single stream recycling.
So I've got a report, and if you've had a chance to look at it, that's great. If you haven't, did find a small error in it, but we can go through this in detail if you like. I would anticipate when we're done this evening, would also publish this on the website so the public has an opportunity. But otherwise, I'll go through it in summary. City began curbside recycling services in 1993. We serve about 6,400 residents, or 6,400 residential parcels, with a route that takes 10 days with approximately 640 stops per day. We currently have dual stream, where paper is collected separately. And we collect about 840 tons of recyclable materials and 5,700 tons of garbage per year. We currently don't pay anything for tipping fees for recycling, but that's about to change just because of the recycling market is tanked, and we've received notice that won't be continuing. We pay.
So we'll have to pay.
We'll have to pay.
Just so
Right.
everybody understands.
Right. We currently pay $51.61 a ton for tipping fees for garbage. On the graph, it's a combined graph. The brown is garbage collected in tons, and the green is recyclables collected in tons. And the graph at the bottom is shows a little bit of history from 2000 to 2015 in tons of recycling collected. We have been meeting our DNR requirements as far as pounds per capita, which is great. We do have some room for improvement. The issue is that the current recycling truck is at the end of its service life, and the replacement is necessary in a short window, and it is in need of constant maintenance and repair, and making it more costly than necessary for a current recycling collection. We can replace that truck with the same type that we have now and continue recycling as we do now, or we can change to an automated collection technology in which the operator stays in the truck, and the truck has an arm that grabs a recycling bin, a container that's more like a larger can, and then it tips into the truck. There are both some pros and cons for both options. From a cost analysis standpoint, I did have an error here on the replacement vehicle. I do have to verify that, but the difference in price between a recycling truck like we have now and an automated is $25,000. So somewhere in there I've got a number that's incorrect, but the differential is about $25,000 more for a truck that utilizes the arm and is automated. The carts that we currently use, the 18-gallon bins, are brittle and have failed for many residents. The city is not currently funding the replacement of those bins. An automated collection requires carts. Based on my research, a 95-gallon high-quality cart with a 10-year guarantee and an expected service life of 15 to 20 years would cost between $340,000 to $360,000 for the city, depending on whether or not, and this is out of pocket, depending on whether or not the city delivers carts to the residents or a contractor delivers carts to the residents. The estimates for 6,500 carts, we have about 6,400 stops. So that leaves some room for growth, and if a cart gets damaged or needs to be replaced, we have some in stock that we could work with. The cost over a 20-year life would be about $2.75 per cart per year. Tipping fees. This is where it gets a little complicated. And I don't know that it pays for me to go through this in great detail, but I'll summarize for you. Right now, with the market being poor, if we were to continue recycling the way we are now, we would see an increase in tipping fees. Let's see. I'll find it in here somewhere. I've got the estimate for the increase if we don't do anything. About $13,000 a year based on our current methods. One of the advantages of single stream recycling using the carts is that generally people recycle a lot more. It's very convenient. I've taken a look at several research documents published by the University of Wisconsin Extension, and I'd estimate a 10 to 25% increase in recyclables just from switching to single stream, and another 10 to 35% going from the method we use now to the automated cart system. That's based on experience in other municipalities that have made the change, and the public finds it very convenient. If we switch to single stream and the markets don't improve, the cost would increase from what we are doing now between $37,000 and $49,000 if we could transfer at the local station that we are now here in town. If the process speeds up, which we anticipate it would, we may be able to drive and drop our recyclable materials directly at the Portage County recycling facility, and that would be between a $21,000 and $28,000 a year increase. If the recycling market returns to what it was a few years ago, our current method, I would anticipate, would be the same as it is now. There are no tipping fees, it's just collection costs. If we would single stream transfer locally, there'd be about a $15,000 to $20,000 increase, and if we would single stream and unload directly at the Portage County facility, we would probably see a $15,000 to $20,000 savings. There are some other considerations other than costs. Workers' compensation is a big one. Slip and fall incidents happen regularly, sometimes multiple times per day, especially between November and March as drivers enter and exit the vehicle literally hundreds of times a day, 600, 700 times a day. I was not able to make a clear estimation of work comp savings. However, the risk associated with the truck entry, exit, slip and falls would be significantly reduced. Most importantly, safety and the work environment for employees would be improved, and it would make it much easier to find and keep employees. When you're working in an automated truck, you're really in a controlled environment. I don't anticipate for recycling practices that there would be significant wage savings, because currently we run one person on our recycling vehicle, and there'd be one person in a automated.
Still be there.
Right. Any savings that we may see in wages and costs, I think would be consumed by additional maintenance costs of maintaining the arm and the additional hydraulics on that cost. So I think that'd be a wash. So in summary, cost-wise, if the market changes back to the way it was, we could see a cost increase up to about $27,000 if we dump locally, and it could decrease up to about $26,000 if we go to the site. So it's really, there's not a huge cost differential either way. But certainly the picture looks a lot better if the recycling market comes back. If we were to anticipate for a long duration that the recycling market's going to be poor, it might be cost advantage to stay the way we are. Some other pros and cons of automated recycling. I'll go through these fairly quickly. The collection itself is more aesthetically pleasing as the carts are uniform in size, color, and placement. Because there is an increased cleanliness, because there's a decrease of loose material blowing out due to the larger carts that have lids. There is a potential increase of valuable recyclables as the lid does tend to keep the recyclable materials dry. The carts on rollers are easier to move than carrying the 18-gallon containers. Residentials typically recycle more, ultimately extending the life of landfills and reducing the tipping fees associated with garbage disposal. The single compartment automated recycling trucks can also be used for garbage collection if the city does eventually change garbage collection to automated. It would essentially give us a backup vehicle if we had a breakdown. We could use our trucks potentially more efficiently, or at least provide service while we're broken down otherwise. While my analysis doesn't demonstrate significant financial savings, studies seem to show that the single stream collection saves between 5 and 25% in collection costs. Like I say, but my calculations don't indicate that, but the studies show. There are some disadvantages. Because of the convenience of these large carts, there can be an increase in contaminated materials. Some people tend to start to use it as a garbage can rather than a recycling container. So that can be an issue. Obviously, the initial capital cost of the carts and difference in the price of the truck to perform automated recycling is high. There's also a change in service. So a significant public outreach effort explaining how the carts are used, proper placement, and so on and so forth would be absolutely critical to a successful program. And there may be a need to change the collection routes, tipping locations, and other operational challenges associated with any change in service. After discussing the pros and cons with the mayor and staff, I do recommend that the city recommend taking steps to implement an automated recycling system. I believe the market is likely to return within the next several years, and the positive impacts of the single stream automated process outweigh the negatives. I then list some actions moving forward for either changing to single stream or retaining dual stream. And I won't go into that right now. But that concludes the general report. Do you have any questions or comments or?
Are you looking for a recommendation from us tonight to one way or the other?
No.
Because I've read it.
Yeah, the issue here obviously
I'm glad
is,
you went over it and explained it.
right, is that if there is a change, this would be have a significant impact to the residents of the community. And I have started to draft some educational documents. I've viewed some videos. The city of Wausau just made a change. We had a fairly lengthy phone call with the finance director from the city of Wausau to talk about challenges that they faced in a recent change. But we will have a significant effort to put together the educational materials and get people up to speed, ordering the carts, ordering the truck. I mean, it would be a significant change in service. So I don't think it's something that I would suggest taking lightly. However, I would suggest that because of the condition of the existing truck, that you folks talk to your constituents, I'll get this information on the website, and I'll probably try to make contact, with the paper or talk to the mayor on some type of public outreach, just to get some discussion going, to see if there's any, significant opinions either way.
And not to mention the financial sort of, it's a leap for us to finance, not the
Correct.
truck so much. We've got that programmed in our
With the carts.
in our equipment replacement cycle. It's the cars. And there's a couple of resources we've started to connect with. That there's organizations, nonprofits that really want municipalities to make this change because they're pro recycling efforts and things. So there are some financial resources out there to cities, and even some local vendors may desire to sponsor these things. I know some municipalities have a robust marketing effort on their containers. I'm not sure what value it is, but people do see value in that. So there may be ways to to adjust the cost of introduction to this change. But I think many of us hear from residents already that this is something. When is Rapids going to do it? I think is a question we get more or less than my recycling bin is shot and I need a new replacement recycle bin. But that's just a couple thoughts.
Steve, then I got something.
Okay. I think this is a great idea. I think it's something we should move towards, but the one thing I think we need to find a way to fix is the recycling bins. Granted, there's problems with the ones that are currently in use. They get beat up and they get cracked and all that. But the other thing is I've gone to other communities like Clover Point and Wapaka. I've seen blue recycling bins that say City of Wisconsin Rapids on them. So my concern is if we're going to purchase these carts for the residents, and then somebody thinks, well, golly gee, I'm going to have a nice garbage can when I move to my next place. I'm going to take this with me. The next homeowner moves it to the house. They don't have a recycling bin. Then they're going down to the city and asking for one, and they're going to be on the hook for the $55 or the cost of the bin. I guess, in short, if there's a way we could take to find a way to curb that, so we don't end up, so our recycling bins don't end up leaving with homeowners that leave the community. And one thing that I can think of is if we get the word out to the real estate agents that sell houses in this town, just have it something that when someone's potentially looking at buying a house, something as simple as check and make sure the recycling bin's there, so we don't end up losing these out of our community.
I think the quotation that I have from one vendor that I utilized for this report includes RFID tags. It's a radio frequency ID tag that each cart has. And when a cart is delivered at an address, there's a tool, and it's similar to what our survey department has, that records the location that it was dropped off at, the address, the time of day, basically provides evidence that this city asset, it wouldn't likely belong to the property owner. It would be a city asset. Has been dropped off at this location. The carts have serial numbers on them, plus an ID tag that is it's well contained in the cart. It's not possible for someone to tamper with it. And so then replacement of the cart becomes the responsibility of the property owner, and potentially if it's a unit that's stolen or whatever, part of the cost of the cart is to have a great big City Wisconsin Rapids logo on it. If it's spotted somewhere, it can be checked with the radio frequency tag and identified. It also comes into play, potentially the technology exists for the trucks also, so that when they grab that cart, there's a sensor on the arm and it reads the ID tag that at this particular time, the truck was at this particular location and picked up this particular cart. And it's not necessarily the neighbor's cart. So the technology exists, it's fairly inexpensive, and allows us to track the fleet, track the carts, and help prevent those types of measures. It also allows us to track that if there's a work order called in that a cart needs repaired, that cart can be scanned that it's been collected for repair, and the replacement cart put in the field, and its ID assigned to that particular address. So there's, you know, as simple as it may look, there's quite a bit of technology involved in the program.
Okay, well, when you started out in reading 1993, I just have to say I was involved with that back then, so.
Bet.
That was an ordeal then, getting started into recycling and that, so. The other, I think, I just looked at it, I don't remember. 95 gallon drum, is that our
Yes.
cart? And it's on wheels.
Yes.
About how big is that? I mean, 95 gallons.
What I would propose, you know, what I could do for the next meeting is I could maybe have our street department drop a few off so that you could see. And that's going to be a question for that I need to be able to answer if we decide to go that direction for the public. How big is this? How much room is this going to take in my garage? Am I going to be capable of moving this thing?
That's why
Right,
I
so-
asked.
so-
Because where are people gonna put that during that week?
So the cart takes up about just a little more space than 2 recycling bins.
Okay.
Floor area. It's certainly
Okay.
taller.
Yeah.
And they do vary in height a bit, and they also vary in construction. Some of them, the wheels are inset just a little bit, and tipping is actually very light. They're also designed aerodynamically to withstand a 35-mile-an-hour wind empty, so that they don't blow around. You know, they're designed well. There are a lot of issues that have come into play, and that's why these are designed that way. I would anticipate in the process of educating the public that I would look to someone as a volunteer, potentially someone who's pretty old and frail, to take a can that's loaded with typical recycling materials and to tip it and walk out to the curb as a demonstration so that we can, you know, and
Who finds
to maybe have a few cans here so that you can try, so that you yourselves have an idea what operating these things would be like. The suggestion on the size of cans is 95 gallons for a few reasons. We would want to try to supply cans for a worst case scenario. What we don't want to do is have people have more recyclables than what we have space to collect them. And for most people, I think they'd find the 95-gallon can is a comfortable size as far as height and as far as being able to grab it. You know, basically there's, I think, 30 to 35, 64, 65 gallon, and then 95. Most communities will either go straight with 95, and then some of them would go smaller for garbage because sometimes garbage weighs a little more, and to get that out. Other communities go 95 both ways. Most of the community, early on, when communities started doing single stream, they'd offer a lot of options. And the public seemed to like that until they got their cart, and pretty soon everybody's got 95-gallon carts anyway. So it's really important, I think, to carefully select the sizes and really not have a lot of options. There also would be some issues with some of our large item collection. You know, right now you want to put a mattress out or something like that. We would have to integrate a program that, you know, maybe you get a few tags for large items and you know, in a given year, and that's included in your price of collection. You know, those types of service things we need to talk about and see what the expectations of the city is for those type of collection activities, whether we make some small changes or, you know, or we run around on a regular basis just collecting large items, or if we schedule appointments for those things, if we want to limit it. Those are all things that we would need to take into consideration if we would change to a single stream system.
What's the closest city, Joe, that has?
Stevens Point.
Okay.
Stevens Point, Wausau. I'm not sure if Marshallville does yet or not.
Well, I'd be interested myself to just go watch it, I mean, to see it actually work in operation. I don't know if other people would wanna go on it.
Well, what I would be
Sure,
glad to do
look at it.
is, I'd be glad to email you some video links,
Okay.
so you could see it at least on your computer. And certainly, we could try to arrange a field trip if we wanted to do that and go visit a municipality.
Just a couple more things, I guess, for me right now, anyway. Has the crew been asked about this, involved, I mean, and told what being
Yes,
considered? Because, I mean, they know the condition of the truck we have now,
Yeah.
so.
Well, and the
yes,
workman's comp thing, I think that's an important point. We've been very fortunate to not have, and this is more so on the garbage side, but we haven't had a lot of slips and falls and injuries. We could.
we've had a lot of slips and falls, but we haven't had a lot of
Injuries,
injuries.
maybe.
Bad stuff, yeah.
Guys have been pretty
Where most municipalities are forced into a system because their workman's comp is so high. So fortunately, we've had a good run.
But, yeah. Well, that's good, to keep the crew involved, because they're the ones that are gonna be using the stuff.
Right.
To, you know, to see what they think about it,
Yep.
so.
We've talked about there's different styles of trucks. Some use a Corrado can in the front, you dump into that, and dump over the top. Some pull from the side. You know, we've talked about cans, we've talked about technology. So yes, we have been involving the street department staff in the discussions. We have several cans that different vendors have demonstrated, you know, that we're looking at as far as construction method, durability, what they look like, those types of things also.
I'd say about a year ago, the recycling truck driver and Jim and Paul and I and we all had a demo of a truck and some canisters and things. You know, actually the driver got in and played with it and loaded a can.
I think I
Yeah.
remember that, no.
Yeah,
I
you
wasn't-
might have
I
been-
wasn't, I
okay.
wasn't there, but I remember you
Okay,
saying
yeah,
it before.
yeah,
They
so that's
brought it up,
happened.
yeah. Well, with the condition of the truck that we have, the maintenance that's on it, we have different options to consider for this committee, and then goes to finance. And then we'll try to talk you into what we think is best. I guess that's how it works. That's how I think it works anyway.
Yep,
And I get, and so with that is, we have to replace the truck.
we have to replace the truck,
How, and I guess the question is, we're not gonna make that decision tonight,
correct?
what we want, but how soon, so we can get this in a timely manner that we want? What time frame are you looking, our committee to,
My hope is that we would bring this back next month for a recommendation. It's still gonna take a significant amount of time once we order the truck for it to arrive. If we ordered the truck in March, after the March Common Council meeting, it would be a push to have the program implemented by the end of the year. So we're still asking for our truck to be out there for quite a while yet in the condition that it's in. So we really do need to move.
and that's part of the reason I asked, because I know it takes a long time when you order stuff like that to get it.
Right.
So, I think that, basically, I stole the floor maybe, if anybody else had it.
Well, with you said the garbage cans would all be property of the city. Why would you want that?
So that you could basically control that you've given the property owner the can is of a consistent size, consistent color. I would propose using, you know, some places use blue cans. Based on the research that I've done, you want the cans to blend in. You might use a green can for recycling and a brown can for garbage. They're natural colors, natural earth tone type colors. They have City Wisconsin Rapids logo on it. They have garbage or recycling on it so that there's some consistency, as well as that frequency ID tag. Is that, you know, as we critique our own service and, you know, try to figure out how many stops are we making per day, what time are we collecting these things, if we would allow the residents just to purchase their own. You know, there may be different sizes. When you set the arms up to grab these cans, the hydraulics are set up generally works better if you can set them for one size of can, because you'll set the limits differently and the hydraulic pressures to grab them differently. And if you've got a bunch of different sizes, it can be a bit more challenging for the collection process. So there are some real advantages to having them as a city-owned asset. There could be, the city could bond for it. The city could partner with other entities, apply for some grants. And I don't know if the current law would allow for costs to be assessed directly as an annual fee. I'd have to look into that under the current state laws. But there are a number of different ways to fund those. And in the report, I think there is an example. Yeah, 3 to 5 cents per thousand mill rate.
There somewhere, yeah.
And if the market returns, it could be a 3-cent increase to a 3-cent decrease in our mill rate. With the purchase of the cans in the vehicle and saving on tipping fees and so on and so forth. So, as far as cost to an individual property owner, it's a few dollars a year, but it's, in this current climate, we can't necessarily just increase our tax rate by 3 cents. So, it's certainly something to consider.
Okay, anybody else? Just keep us informed, get us info before the next meeting if we
I will get those
Make a
videos
decision.
emailed to you as soon as I possibly can, so you can see some trucks in action, what things look like, and we'll try to get this report on the website as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys.
Yeah, see you, Mayor. Item 12, review the referral list.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I got some feedback on item number 17. I can believe that we can take that off there now. They said that there's a decrease and they're looking forward to the experimental thing that
Well,
we're
hopefully it continues and gets better.
What about the signage though?
I believe that's already in the works to come, because I believe we approved that through this committee.
Okay.
So
If I may, I would recommend that we keep it on until we've actually completed the pilot.
Right.
I think it keeps us as staff on task, and as we look through this, and because we do, to see if we're missing anything this month. For example, my next objective is to get this committee costs for the signs for our pilot project.
Right.
If I don't see this on here, I don't want to forget. So if that's okay with you, I'd like to keep it on there.
no, that's fine.
See you next week, guys.
Thanks, Ian.
See you.
Okay. Well,
What about the speed studies? You did those.
which one?
5 and 6.
We haven't approved them yet.
Yeah.
Well, what we could do is
Approve.
eliminate the studies and make one item for recommendations. Or what do you think, Joe? Or would you just leave them alone?
Either one. You could leave them the way they are, or you could modify it.
Maybe it'd be easiest just to leave it the way it is.
It's number 12 taken care of with the 5 minutes for brush pickup. Oh,
Get the video settled, everything down.
I think in the spring, it'll, as that service becomes more in demand, we may have some more questions to answer in the spring, but I agree. I think the videos really helped.
Can we take it off of here, do you think, or
I think-
leave it till spring?
I think we could take it off,
Okay.
and if we find a need to revisit,
Okay.
You get a call in the spring, I'll refer him to
Yeah.
Mr. Amon.
It was I saw the video, I mean, it was,
Video was really
it was
good.
good.
It happened to be in my district, I think. Probably the guy I called.
we
Any
can
others
scratch,
that people see?
number 16, we could,
Okay, I was gonna ask if we, or leave it on, because we'll have it each month, but that's fine, yes. Take it off. Okay. That's it. Then, committee, we can go to item 13, and that's, to adjourn this meeting, that was a little long, but, I think we had some good comments, and hopefully, we all learned on these different items that we went through, so.
Move to adjourn.
second.
The motion is second to adjourn, all in favor, respond by aye. Aye, opposed, ayes have it, meeting adjourned at 7:55.